Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abby, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abby, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Dear Abby.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abby podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of Dear Abby. I'm your host. My name is Abby, and welcome back. I'm very excited to be recording today. I really missed you guys. I miss you guys all week. This is like my safe haven. You guys don't understand. I love doing this podcast, even though sometimes it stresses me out so much. But when I'm here and I'm just recording and I'm just talking about the things that we can all relate to and just having fun is like my favorite part of the week. Before I jump into today's episode, I do want to say thank you so much for the people who watch my episodes every week and like my engaged listeners, if you will. The podcast Ride or Dies, you guys help me keep this podcast going. It's almost been 2 years of my podcast, which is blowing my mind. And I'm super grateful for where we've gone with the podcast. I am just so grateful that I have people who have been listening since the beginning. And even though some people watch every once in a while or listen every once in a while, I'm still so grateful for any second that's ever been spent watching me and listening to me. Yeah, I got a bunch of messages after my relationship OCD podcast about a lot of people who are suffering with this, who could really relate, unfortunately, to the experiences that I was sharing. So we're not alone in this, which makes me just really happy to see. And I feel very validated when I get messages, and it kind of makes me want to keep going with the podcast and stuff like that, because I don't know, I feel like it is important and people are listening and it makes them feel seen. And I think to be loved is to be seen. I will gladly take on that role. So I was reading those messages and I was sobbing, and I was having a very emotional day. I was feeling very emo towards my listeners, both girls and guys, and just how grateful. And you guys are all lovely, lovely people who are very empathetic, understanding, compassionate, and strong-willed, even though it might not feel like it. So I just wanted to say that because my heart felt very full, and it still feels very full with love for everyone listening. And yeah, I don't know. I don't take any of it for granted. And so I feel very renewed, and I feel very excited for the years to come with the podcast. And it may change. It may be exactly the same. We'll see. Okay, yeah, cool. Enough of that. I feel like I haven't recorded in 2 weeks because that's just how it feels every single time. I have a lot to catch you guys up on, but I will bore you some of the boring details. I will spare you of some of the boring details. However, not all of the boring details. For example, because I wanted to talk about myself for a little bit. If I can be so obliged. If you can be so obliged. I don't know how that works. I don't know which way is which. So I had a really crazy experience and kind of scary, and which I will share. That is definitely my L for this week. However, my dub is that I am starting, I know, I talk about a different like workout routine, but I've also talked about how I'm trying to find one that I really like and that's sustainable for me, because sometimes I just go all in black or white and then I give up fast. So I'm trying to just slowly, just move a little bit every day, no matter what it is. It might not be the exact same program or routine, but I have started doing calisthenics, and it's been something that I'll see videos about and I'll hear it in conversation, and I'll go to the gym and I'll see people doing kind of cool stuff. And it's mixed with like a lot of things that I learned in yoga, teacher training. So I am very intrigued. So I've just picked up a program and I'm doing it like a couple times a week. I'm not going crazy with it, and I just go to an outside gym and use a pull-up bar. I cannot do a pull-up to save my life, but my goal is to slowly work my way up to one pull-up. Okay, I have never trained my arms and those muscles specifically, like ever in my life, really, and consistently, at least. So sometimes I get, like I was saying with the black and white thinking, I'll start a routine or I'll start a program and I'll expect myself to be able to do a pull-up after, 1 week of doing it. And then if I don't, I get frustrated and angry and annoyed. And so I just give up. So this time I want to approach this program differently and just not even think about doing a pull-up and not obsess over eventually wanting to do a pull-up, I guess, if that makes sense. I just want to enjoy getting stronger. And then we'll see where I land in, 6 months or something. I've noticed that when I set expectations that are way too high and way too crazy, I get extremely disappointed and angry and bitter. So instead, I'm starting to set very realistic expectations and just be okay with things taking a long time. I mean, everyone has that part of you that just wants more and more and more, or ego or whatever you want to call it. It does help drive you, but it also is exhausting because it always wants more. Like we all have that part that always wants more. It's not good enough. I want it really good now. And sometimes we are entitled little brats to things that we want and to things that we think we should get because we put in a little bit of work. And I'm just trying to change my mindset about that, and things will take a long time. I don't want to have this entitled energy when I'm working towards a goal because then I get frustrated and bitter and, I don't want to be that. So taking it day by day. My arms are so sore in places that I didn't know had muscles type of a thing. When you work out a new set of muscles, you're like, where did those come from? I've never been sore in those areas. That's how it feels. But it feels really good. It feels really good when I stretch. Like, the feeling of when you're sore, but then you stretch and it like hurts so good. I'm getting a lot of that. So I'm just trying to enjoy it, even though it's extremely painful, but it feels kind of good. So I will track my progress and let you know how that's going. I also wanted to update you guys on my dancing stuff because I got really into dancing and I took up dancing classes, but I could no longer afford the subscription because I'm just on a tight budget currently. So I'm not taking dance classes anymore. However, I do make it a goal to dance about 2 to 3 times a week in the mirror, looking at myself dancing, and try like a TikTok routine or try something that I see on the website, like this dancing website, and I'll do a dance class on YouTube that's free or something, just to get my body moving and to be comfortable with looking awkward. And then also practicing being confident in my body and moving, even though I might feel like my arms are too big or my waist isn't small enough to look good dancing, like all these dumb lies that your brain tells you. So I just wanted to update you guys on that. I stopped filming it because I wasn't doing like dance classes anymore, but I do have a couple months of footage of me dancing and learning to dance. And if I ever get confident enough one day, I will post it. Okay. That'll be a huge exposure for me to post that content because it's very rough to watch. Still is, I'm sure. If I recorded myself dancing, it would still be a hard watch, but it's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. Here is the negative part. Okay. I don't know if the story is going to be triggering. It possibly could be. So the L this week was that I got pretty much catcalled at Sprouts, which was a very disappointing situation because it's been a while since I've been approached by a weird man. And when I say weird man, it's just some guys are creeps. Like they do one weird off thing and you're like, oh, you're a creep. And then they cannot recover after that, and they shouldn't because they definitely are a creep. Anyways, I was coming out of Sprouts and my boyfriend was with me. I do not like to go to grocery stores that often alone, nor in the evening. So I was with my boyfriend and we were in line together. He said, oh wait, I have to go grab something. I'll be right back. So he went back. I had already I'm like right by the checkout. So I just got my stuff and I paid for my groceries. And then I stepped like 1 to 2 steps outside of the main door. So everyone could still see me. It's like not a weird place to be. I'm not in a dark alley or anything. And this guy walks out who just checked out, and he walks by me and goes, oh, you like that band? Referring to my shirt that has Suga from BTS or Augusty. And I was like, yeah, BTS. And he was like, yeah. He's like, how do you know them? I'm like, they're really big. And that's all I said. And then he said something about like, I like your energy, Sparky. Or he literally called me Sparky. And then he went for a high five, which I'm so mad at myself that I gave him a high five because why? That's not okay. You know what I mean? It's just, And here's why, because as a girl, you have this intuitive feeling of like, this guy's creepy. Again, the second something feels off, you're like, he's a creep. And the second he went for the high five, I was like, he's a creep. I can just tell. But I still high fived him because I'm like, well, I'm safe. Like, everyone can see me. My boyfriend's checking out. Like, it's not a scary situation, really. It's just like, ew, I'm going to go wash my hand. But when he high-fived me, he like grabbed onto my hand for like a good 1-2 seconds and was kind of holding it tight. Then he leaves and I'm like, okay, that was so annoying. Whatever, he's gone. My boyfriend's about to walk out. At this point, I should have just walked inside because I was already feeling a little bit creeped out. And yeah, I'm mad at myself that I gave him a high five. I'm mad at myself that I didn't walk in. A part of me is very mad at myself for not just ignoring him and not giving him a high five and then walking inside to my boyfriend immediately. It was half because I didn't want to look weird coming back in with my groceries. I don't know why that's a thing, but sometimes I get nervous about that, which is so dumb looking back. And I'm definitely changing that part of myself that's so scared to be an inconvenience, especially when I feel uncomfortable. It's like, I don't care anymore. Anyways, so I just stand there and I'm like, okay, well, he's gone. Then I hear Sparky. Again, don't know why he's calling me Sparky. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's like a weird, it's just weird, creepy. He's creeping me out. I turn because that's my initial reaction, is to turn where someone's yelling. He's in his car and it's parked like 2 spots away. And in between is like the rows of carts, that are parked. And so there's lots of space in between, lots of carts. And he starts yelling something to me about me being adorable. He used the word adorable, which just really pissed me off. And I said, what? And he kept trying to say what he was saying. And then I just said, my boyfriend's coming out in a second. Like, I have a boyfriend, he's coming out. And then he just kept talking. And I was like, and then I turned around. And thankfully by that time when I turned around, Keaton was coming out. We held hands and I walked away, and he goes, and he's in his car and he drives by and he goes, bye, Sparky. When I tell you how annoying it is that I can't just exist in the world and just be carefree and just assume that people are good people and that aren't going to harass you. The fact that I can't do that is so upsetting. And I don't know, it's just annoying because when you're nice and you're assume the good in people, then you get like stomped on. And I am now maturing to where I'm like, I don't need to be nice to everyone. I'm going to be a biatch. Next time a guy ever does that to me or cat calls me, like, I'm either just going to completely ignore or just be a total biatch. But then at the same time, I'm kind of scared to be a biatch because sometimes that makes them more angry. So this is just your sign to just ignore him. Being harassed by a man is never okay. And if a man is comfortable enough to harass you, he's a creep and he's a weirdo, and that's just it. So don't ever feel bad to be a B word, and don't give men high fives. Yeah, I was really mad at myself for the rest of the day, which is annoying because a part of me is really mad. And then a part of me is like just mad at like other people and the fact that that just like exists and people are just that rude and that weird and creepy. Yeah, I don't know. So I'm definitely gonna keep walking around with Mace and just ignore. It did feel good to keep saying, what? Huh? Just annoying that you have to worry about that, as a girl. My boyfriend didn't see anything at the time because he wasn't like screaming, and it wasn't this intense encounter. It was just like annoying. It was like catcalling vibes where it's like, you're creepy, go away. So that was really a horrible time. And then I was scared for like 2 days, and yeah, I don't know. I was scared for a while after that. So Kian didn't leave my side for a long time because I was very scared and just felt very off about everything. Not all guys are gross because my boyfriend's not gross, and he's protective and he will protect me, and good men protect women and they speak up for women. If you're a guy and you still look to like your friends on how you should treat a woman, or you look to, I don't know, what's like the normal way, don't do that. Just trust the people that you look up to and the men you look up to and how they treat their wives and how they treat the girls in their life. And also just come up with your own morals and values that are good, and that you speak up for women, and you speak up if your friend's being a creep, tell him he's being a creep and report him if need be. And I hope if I have daughters, you know what, I'm going to put them into jiu-jitsu so that if a guy is ever creepy or makes any advances on them, that they can just freaking take them down and rip their man parts off. I don't know if that's part of jiu-jitsu. Don't think it is, but To be able to take down a grown man is what I want my girls to do. My daughters. I want them to fight, not freeze. I freeze, and I don't like that about myself. But I can change it, I think. I think with therapy, I could change it. Yeah, be a biatch, Be rude. Be a brat to those creepy men. Don't be scared of making them feel bad. They should feel bad. They should feel shame, honestly, in those moments. So it's never fun to be catcalled. Very annoying. But we move on. And I took 2 days to process and to feel heavy and grossed out and creeped out and mad at myself. And now I feel better about it. Okay, so let's get into the meat of today's episode. And that is rumination. For those of you that don't know what rumination means, I talk about it a ton on the podcast, but I've never really done a full segment on how important stopping rumination is and was for me in my recovery, just with anxiety, OCD, worry, I don't know, a million different things. It's just a general practice of not ruminating. So what rumination really is, at least for me in my experience, is just unnecessary loops being played in my brain over and over and over and over again that are pretty much just by choice. And it's to try to understand it differently this time, or to think about the same thing over and over and over and over again, not really getting a different result, but thinking that you're going to get one. And it's kind of just not accepting and not being at peace with what is. And it's, instead of figuring something out that's actually helpful, it's kind of just torturing yourself, as well as there's things that don't have answers and like straightforward answers. And instead of just assuming that you're doing your best and that you can accept that, this is what I think is best and that's going to have to be okay because I can't prove otherwise. It's like, instead of being okay with that and then moving on and thinking about real things, you kind of obsess over these these very big questions or small questions, but don't really have an answer. And so you just keep replaying and trying to figure that one thing out. Yeah, it's just really unnecessary worry and rumination. So rumination is like a compulsive behavior. It's a compulsion thing that you do because you have an urge to do it. So for example, to put it in practice, it would be, I'm at work, I start to notice my blinking or my swallowing. Let's say my swallowing, because that's been a theme for me, is like, every time I swallow, it's like, that's all I can think about. And I have to swallow multiple times in a row to make sure it feels like the perfect swallow. I don't know. It's so weird. It's kind of the just right stuff. But anyways, so I'm at work. I start to notice my swallowing. I get a thought like, your throat feels smaller than normal. Or like, why does your throat feel so small? Or what if your throat's closing up? And then, or what if you can't swallow your food right? And that thought happens. I immediately just think, okay, well, this is, and then if you choose the rumination route, this is normally what happens in my brain. You think, okay, well, I don't think my throat's closing up. Let me like try to move my throat around, like maybe swallow a couple times. Okay, that's normally what it feels. Well, no, actually that feels a little bit different. How did it used to feel? Like before I had OCD or I don't know, like yesterday, how did it feel yesterday? Has it always been this small? And then you kind of go back into your memory and you try to figure that out. And that's rumination. What am I going to get out of that? Nothing. I'm not going to get anything out of that. Instead, it's like, oh, my throat feels small. If you don't choose rumination, you just think, oh, okay, well, maybe it is small. I don't know. I don't really know how it normally feels. So I'm just going to sit with this discomfort. Like, I don't know, maybe it is feeling weird today and maybe it is smaller than normal. And I just kind of leave it there. And sometimes, and you definitely get an urge to figure it out, or especially if it's a very sticky theme. Like for me, religious stuff is really hard to, ride the urge wave where you have an urge to do something, but you just have to ride it and eventually the urge goes down. So that's what rumination feels like for me. It's like this hellish loop in your head that you think, okay, I could go there and maybe it'll be different this time. Okay, that's the promise of OCD. That's the promise that it likes to make. Like, but if you think about it this way, it'll be different this time. We'll get an answer. You will not. You never will. You never, ever will. So that is a lie. And in a lot of the therapy and the podcasts and stuff that I've listened to of professionals who have dealt with this for a lot of years, dealt with a lot of clients, and, you know, have degrees in psychology, they always say, the more you ruminate about it, the more uncertain you become, which is scary. Like that, I just triggered myself saying that because it's scary to me to like, well, what if I never stop and then I'm not concerned about anything, and that's scary. And I just have to sit with that. Maybe I don't ever stop. I don't know. Anyways, and so the more you give into compulsions, the less certain you'll feel about stuff like that. So it is really a never-ending loop until you choose to end it. It's really hard to kind of notice sometimes at the beginning and in the middle and at the end, just all the time, to notice that you're actually ruminating instead of just thinking. You're ruminating. You can feel a difference because one feels kind of desperate and like you're trying to get something, and it's just like the wheels are turning and turning and turning, and it's not like turning into anything. It's not formulating something. It's all it's doing is just like a hamster wheel. When we notice we're on the hamster wheel, we just have to step off and think, I'm not going to solve this. I know what you're promising me. And I don't believe you anymore, and I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to say, you know what, based off of my experiences, I think I'm just going to choose this way, and I'm not going to figure this out anymore with you. But it is really hard to notice when you're ruminating, when you're so used to it. Since I was a little girl, I remember ruminating about things and trying to figure out all of these things and have all these answers, and everything had to feel right and click in my brain. I had to comprehend everything perfectly. I had to reread stuff perfectly so that it totally makes sense. So I've been doing it since I was a little girl. So now having to rewire that and to choose to stop is so hard because it feels like a huge part of you. And I think sometimes OCD tries to make it seem like it's the smartest part of you because thinking is smart and you're intellectual. So that means it's good for you to think about everything. And that's kind of how it gets me stuck sometimes because I think, but I like thinking about everything. I like thinking about things, but I don't like ruminating and worrying. And there's a point where I just have to seal it, where I just have to tie a bow and send it off. And I'm like, that's all I can think about on that subject. And I'm done with that now. So I think it's very important to find your own balance of when you're trying to solve something real and you're trying to really think about something important that is solvable, or at least that you can get a direction on and make a judgment and then move forward and then stop thinking about it. Yeah, rumination is just tricky because it can feel so natural and it can also feel very automatic. Like sometimes we don't know the difference of life when we're not ruminating because we're so used to ruminating that when we stop, it feels very unnatural and very unsettling, which it's supposed to because it has been, quote unquote, protecting you for a long time. But don't let it make you think that you're OCD and that is what makes you special or smart or intellectual, because it is not. That's the part that's not actually. That part is like a lie, and that part is not based in reality. It's very delusional. And I feel comfortable saying that because I know like my OCD themes have been very delusional. And sometimes they feel like, yes, they're real topics. You know, this is serious. It feels so serious. It feels so real because it's something that is important to you. But the actual content and then the specifics of it is just like it's not based in reality. It's not real. So hopefully, I don't know. I feel like I used to think that was just invalidating my experience, but now I'm grateful because it does kind of break an illusion. And you need that illusion to be broken. So yeah, that has to go. Like rumination for me, especially if that's a huge compulsion of yours, that's like the main one for me. I have to work on squashing that because I swear, like I'm not being dramatic. The second that I don't ruminate about something that I normally do and I catch myself and I stop, my world like starts to shift. I feel anxious during and I still get the urge. But after that subsides, I feel more at peace with myself and I feel like there's a safe space inside of me again. And it's not like it goes away forever and the urge never comes back. It definitely does. Like it's coming back right now as I'm recording this. I'm just choosing not to click into it because it's never done anything for me. So if you think that you can just recover or you think that life is just okay when you're ruminating all the time, it's not. And that's something that does need to change. It's it hurts my relationships. It hurts my faith. Like it hurts my relationship with faith and God, and it hurts myself. It hurts my body. It just doesn't do anything good for me. And it's hard to let that go, but it's definitely worth it. And again, it's not letting go of thinking rationally and thinking about things. That's a gift, and I love to think, but it's an overthinking, and it's this like hell loop that we replay things over and over again to get certain about it. I don't know. And if you notice that you do that, or you hear it and it sounds familiar to you, but you're kind of in denial that maybe you don't, like, yeah, I'm sure I do that, but then when it happens, you don't take it seriously. I feel like for me, recovery started to change when I took that seriously, and I was like, oh no, I have to stop doing this. Like this is what's making me worse specifically. So I needed a tough love with that part of my recovery. At the beginning of the episode, I talked about with my workout, how I can be very black and white, and I have to be okay with things taking a long time and just small little victories and slowly getting better. And that helps with my OCD recovery mindset. And that helps with any recovery mindset for anything, just making it slow. And instead of having this okay, I have to recover in this time period and I have to recover ASAP, and putting like this expectation on yourself is not helpful because you don't know how long it's going to take. And so that might just burn you out from recovery and just might exhaust you. So for me, what's helpful is to set an expectation that I will try and I will make it a priority daily, but I'm just going to make it like 1% better every day. And that's hard to digest because we want it to be 100% better the next day. But starting to change your mindset into 1% better every day, in a year, you'll feel like a new person. Yeah, I just focus on 1% better every day and accepting and being grateful that change can happen and believing that it can, but that it might just happen slower than you think it does. Or maybe some people have miracle recoveries, but most of the time that's not really how it happens. So I feel very sleepy right now. With all that being said about rumination, it's definitely possible to get better at that. And again, don't expect the change to happen overnight. It happens in over a lifetime. And I have been trying this for years and I still ruminate and I still get stuck in it. So there's hope that it does get better because it has gotten better for me and my enjoyment of life has definitely increased. And there's more space in between when I have these episodes or when I have these rumination spouts, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, take the reins with it. Even though it feels automatic, it's not. Feelings are a tricky thing. Sometimes it just feels like you're never going to get better, but feelings aren't facts. We hear that all the time, which is true. Okay, just because you feel like you can't do it doesn't mean that you actually can't do it. It just feels like you can't do it, but you can. That's another thing. Don't tell yourself you can't do it. If you're having a hard time, even if you feel like you can't do it, that's okay to feel like it. Everyone feels like they can't do that. Everyone feels like they can't do it sometimes. Just stop saying that you can't do it. I had to stop doing that to myself. I had to just, in those moments of when I felt like I can't do it, I didn't say I can't do it. I just say I feel like I can't do it, but I can. I can do this. And it just helped acknowledge what I was feeling, but also recognize that there's stuff past that feeling. The more you say can't, that's just going to get stuck in your head. So start saying, I feel like I can't do it, but I know I can. And I can. And we will see. So if it feels like you can't stop ruminating, again, that's a feeling. So it's not a fact. So when you feel like you have to ruminate, that's what you ride. You ride that feeling of having to ruminate, that urge, until it subsides. And then you're like, oh, I can do it. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot this week just because it just was a huge step for me. And everyone kind of ruminates, I think. I don't know if that's bad to say because it's not like everyone has a little bit of OCD. I feel like rumination is different. Like anyone can ruminate. I think it's extremely intensified with OCD. So I don't know if it's specific to the disorder, but basically just worrying. Everyone does it. So all of this applies to everything and everyone. Don't put yourself through the misery of rethinking things over and over again. I've been doing that for 2.5 years and it's hell on earth. Okay, well, that's it for that segment. Let's get into a Dear Abby. I'm very excited. There's a lot of new Dear Abbies.
Dear Abby, I need some advice big time. I just got into a new relationship, and for context, I am a 23-year-old girl who just got out of a 1-year relationship a couple months ago, and I have gone through a lot of really crappy relationships before this current one. I've had a lot of not so great things happen to me in those relationships that have, caused me to have trust issues as well as a big fear of abandonment. I also really struggle with anxiety and have been really struggling with getting triggered in my new relationship. He's a really, really awesome guy. He's the best person that, I've ever been with. He treats me so amazing, but sometimes I just get triggered by certain things, like, not having a text in a long time, and I would just love some advice on how to cope with those triggers a little bit better in this current relationship, because I always really admire your advice on any mental health, especially anxiety, and would love your help. Thank you.
Love the question. Thanks for trusting me with it, and I will do my best to help you, my liege. Right off the bat, I just want to say that is a very frustrating and real experience and can be very confusing and exhausting. So especially when you feel, and also it can make you feel guilty because you know that they're amazing and you know that they're like everything you've wanted. They're understanding, they're obsessed with you, they're good for you, they're kind, they're attentive, they're communicative, probably emotionally available, all of those things. And so you feel bad that you ever feel bad in the relationship. One, don't feel bad that you feel bad in the relationship. I felt super guilty for feeling bad at all in my relationship just because I know my boyfriend is amazing and he's so attentive, so open, so emotionally there for me and everything. And I feel like it still wasn't enough because I was looking for him to fill a void and to fix all of my trauma and to fix my past. And, he was the missing piece that I needed to make me feel all of the things that I wanted to feel in a relationship and in love. And as awesome as he is and as loving as, our significant others can be to us during our triggers and during kind of these times in our lives where, we just get really triggered a lot and we feel like our wounds are popping up. They can't fix it all. And they're not our therapist. They're not the piece that we need to fix ourselves. They will automatically heal some parts just because they're probably very attentive and everything and things you haven't gotten in the past. But at the same time, they're not perfect and they might disappoint you sometimes because, you want to feel good and feel secure and feel better all the time and feel perfect all the time in your relationship. Yeah, maybe they don't text back in the timeline that in your head is like, well, then if they didn't text me within that timeline, then they don't love me. But in their head, it's like not a big deal and they still are in love with you. And they're still putting in work in a bunch of different places that you're probably just not seeing as much. That's your work to do and that's a long journey. So I think what you're trying to do of just trying to manage your triggers is I think the best thing you can do for now. Yeah, my second piece of advice would be when you feel triggered, take notice of when, like the specific times of when you feel triggered. And is it when he is not saying the things that you want him to say? Is it when he doesn't spend the time with you that you want him to spend with you? When he's not being overly touchy, whatever makes that feeling, that scared like stuckness or something, whenever that feeling comes up, just like mentally take note or physically take notes. And then when you're feeling more clear, look back at those and start to recognize so that next time, if that same feeling or that same type of situation comes up, you can acknowledge like, okay, I'm going to feel like the world is ending when this happens, when he does this. I normally regret the reaction that I first have because it's not rational. So what I'm going to do is when that episode, when I get triggered, and this is exactly what I did. When I get triggered, I'm going to tell myself while I feel like the storm is happening, I'm going to get that 1% of me that's like kind of there still and just say, I feel horrible right now. I just feel horrible. I feel sad. I feel scared. And I'm going to be there for myself right now. And I'm going to invite my partner to be there with me. I'm going to invite my boyfriend to be there with me in a kind, gentle manner. So if, he didn't text you back, like you said, or he didn't respond in a timely manner that you would have felt more loved if he did, fair enough. That is hurtful when you have in your head, it's like, well, this is how I feel love. And if they don't do that, it is hurtful, but it doesn't mean they don't love you. And I think that's like where the extra step comes in and where you get triggered. So I think the way I would handle that is just let them know, hey, whenever this type of situation happens, I feel so scared and vulnerable. You can tell them this and say, I would love for you to comfort me and we don't even have to talk, or I can talk, you listen, don't really say anything. And that way he knows kind of what's happening. Because I don't know what your reaction is, but sometimes I would shut down, like I would go silent, and I wasn't doing it to punish him or anything. I just genuinely would go like nonverbal. And I'm like, I'm trying to process everything because there's so many feelings. Like I'm just trying to stay alive, stay afloat right now. And then also you can say, and then while it's actually happening, and then if, when it does actually happen and you do get triggered, it's really hard to do all of this. And it's hard to just be vulnerable and to like open your heart to them again. You've just got to trust yourself that you want to be in a relationship. You got to trust them, and you got to be so kind and gentle with yourself when this happens. The more frustrated and mad at yourself you get, the worse it feels. And I feel like it just helps. It just adds to the cycle. So just be super kind to yourself, be super patient, be super gentle. It's okay if your boyfriend doesn't know exactly how to handle these situations and how in your big emotions. You might have to tell him what would be most helpful, because some people just don't know. And especially if they don't experience the same, intense emotions or types of emotions as often, they can be so confused by it. And yeah, I think if you're wanting to be a team, then it's a good chance for you guys to be there for each other. And it's a good chance to let him in. And it's also a good chance to bond and to get better, because it's been a long time of dating my boyfriend, and now I feel like I don't get as triggered, and I'm able to be like, oh, he still loves me even though he's annoyed, or okay, his tone felt off, but I know that sometimes his energy just changes. Like no one can keep the same energy for forever, so I'm not going to think about that anymore, and I'm going to let myself feel sad. I feel scared, but also like I have myself, I've got you. That's it for today's episode. I hope that's helpful. I could talk about that topic of relationships so much just because I find it so interesting, just because I find dynamics so interesting, and there's actually so much that you can do, just your side of the relationship, to improve the relationship and to improve your happiness in your relationship. And it's something that I didn't know until like the past couple of years. And so now I'm like obsessed with learning about that and growing in that. And it just helps you have a better relationship. Stay tuned, because I'll definitely do more relationship episodes, because it seemed like a lot of people had feedback on that. And yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' stories more with those. Okay, well, if you're watching on YouTube, my video went out. That's because my memory card, I did not clear it before I recorded, and I definitely should have. So that was naughty of me. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of Dear Abby. If you want to support the podcast, you can like and subscribe, comment on YouTube, and also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can find me on both. There's video on podcasts that are on Spotify now. If you want to see me and my anxiety bear, you check out Spotify or YouTube. Not all Spotify episodes have it. It is a new thing, so I just started doing it. Also, if you want to leave a Dear Abby voicemail, you can text the number in the description, or you can call and leave a voicemail, and then I will play it on hopefully the next episode or in the next couple of episodes to come. Have a great weekend. Take yourself out. Be kind to yourself. Stop ruminating, and love you. Bye.
우회전 taking a right to join a lane 눈치 보면서 들어가